So we finished drawing Sonic. Excellent! Well then, now I'm gonna learn you something new. If you double click on a drawing that's already tweened, you get into another shiny new timeline. This timeline is independent of the original big timeline, which means you can have several animations play inside each other. Onion skin. See, I just taught you that you can animate with tweens. However, there's also frame by frame animation. For that you use onion skin. It's a very little icon right under the timeline, very hard to find. If you click on it, the previous drawings become transparent, so you can trace them again with your pencil. In the timeline you see those little dots that indicate how many frames you see transparent. I only wanted 2 frames behind where I'm now instead of in the front. Then I go back to my drawing and trace the previous Sonic, except now I draw it slightly different, so it's kinda sad this time. There we go. Now Sonic is very sad, and if we go back to the original timeline, you'll see that this animation of this change of his face expression happens right in the middle of the correct animation, because I calculated correctly, of course. So why would I want to animate within an animation, you ask? Well, it saved my life a couple times, like in Kingdom Hearts. There was this scene in Halloween Town where there's lots of stuff happening at once, like Roxas fighting the monster, and Mayor running past while Jack Skellington walks by. Everything is a separate animation because it would be a nightmare to actually keep all the animations intact if I had to do it in one timeline. Back to Onion Skin. It's great to animate frame by frame style. In the previous things I showed, the animations were kinda crude, but if you actually draw the characters completely new for every frame, you get more traditional animation, as you can see here. You don't really have to program or tween anything, it's just drawing a lot and you get your animation. Great, huh? Now if you also color it and give it great background, it almost becomes kind of a real traditional professional animation. Ah, looky here, me and my pal are having an epic sword battle. Does this look familiar to you? Well, that's possible, because I used it in Kingdom Hearts. This is rotoscope. Basically I film stuff, or I use films from other movies, and I trace it, give it a more twist that it looks more like the characters I usually draw. Anyway, basically you make a still for every little moment in a movie, and you trace everything, which is lots of work and not really fun. But well, the result is kind of fluid and cool. And all of a sudden my characters are anatomically correct. Coloring is a major pain too of it. Occasionally people ask, gee Roger, I hate drawing in Flash, can I also draw other stuff like for real and then use it in animation? Well, technically that's possible, I did it before. I painted and draw these actual paper, photograph them and then cut them out. The problem is, in Flash everything always becomes a square, even things you draw in Photoshop, so you have to cut them out. Which means in a later finished movie, they get a really rough edge around them. I do like to make the occasional 3D background in real life though, and then film it. Like it was supposed to be the clock tower and to be used in the Kingdom Hearts movie, but as you can see it looks stupid. Right, back to the Sonic movie. I draw the pie, I draw the shadow, I put them all in the place where they belong. Oh yeah, I forgot to explain before with the tweens, but when you make a tween out of a body part, there becomes a white dot in the middle of it. It's the anchor point. When you rotate a body part, that's the anchor point on which it rotates. So make sure you put a white dot in the places where the body parts connect to the main body. So put the white dot from arms in the shoulder pads to make animation slightly easier. Now, Shadow's face never changes expression in the movie, so to make him more interesting, I'm gonna make him blink his eyes. So just like with Sonic, I double click on it, get a new timeline, and within the timeline I make 2 new frames. Basically I don't redraw the entire face, and basically I just draw the eyelids on top of his eyes later on. So one picture of eyelids half closed and fully closed, and as you can see, during the actual movie, Shadow keeps batting his eyes without my input, making animation a lot easier. Okay, and now for the pie's tragic death scene. I'm gonna teach you lazy frame by frame animating. Hooray! You basically have one drawing of the pie, and after that I immediately skip to the drawing of the pie where it's completely blown open. Now, if I just leave it like that, the movie would look kind of weird because I would immediately jump to the next frame, which is a bit too sudden. So what I do to make it slightly more smooth without actually animating it smooth, basically without tweening, I just make a few extra keyframes, and then I keep free transforming it a little bit, so it kind of warps into the other drawing, so it looks slightly more smooth while barely taking any effort to do. Hooray! I already explained about the linear coloring. There's also radial coloring, which is basically the same, except now the colors are more roundish. Now, another fun thing about this is that you can make a color transparent. So basically, if you put the alpha on 0%, one of the colors become transparent, and as you can see with yellow, it gives kind of an explosion, sun-ish shape, which is very useful. Now I'm gonna animate it here as Shadow's gunfire. It starts small, it grows bigger. Also, it has to fade away after the explosion, so I'm gonna teach you how you can fade something. Basically, you click on it or click on the keyframe, and then if you open properties, then yet again we have color alpha, and if you put alpha on 0%, it disappears, it fades away. So if you animate it like that and play the movie, you'll see the explosion will appear, grow big, and disappear again in a split second. Next up, voice acting. Always useful to have at least one of the main characters for yourself in case you want to add a few new lines quickly. I always keep the nozzle of the microphone away from me, because if I actually aim it at my mouth, I breathe in the microphone, which makes a lot of noise. I usually use Cool Edit as a program to edit and save it, because it has so many options, like making it go faster and slightly more higher pitch and all. However, in this case, I'll use, well, it says geluidsrecorder, but it's sound recorder in English, basically the Windows standard thing. In this case, I use it because it was requested that the voices in this movie sound like the ones in the Sonic and Riders in 3 Minutes movie, in which they always have squeaky voices. Just the sound editing alone usually takes me a full day. In bigger movies like actual IMP episodes and all. It's a lot of work, especially if a lot of different voice actors, who all of them have a different level of volume and always have little openings or things that bother me or make animation more difficult. It becomes a real nightmare in some movies like Kingdom Hearts. It has a bazillion voice actors, which is very intense work. If you're looking for voice actors and don't want to do it yourself, there's millions of forums on the internet, or you can go to my page, because occasionally I put the voice actors under the movie. Click on their names, send them a note or email, and I'm sure they will help you out, because if they help me, then who wouldn't they help, eh? Okay, you have the voices, you have the sound effects, you have the music, then let's get all those things inside the movie. Go to File, Import to library or stage, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And on your hard disk, select whatever the files are, and boom, all the files are inside Flash now. Great! Now, if you want to use those sound effects, basically make a new keyframe on an empty layer, open properties after clicking on the keyframe, and there's sound. Click on the sound bar, and there are all the sound effects and stuff you imported. Great! Select the right one, and you see those funny little blue thingies, which indicates your successful inclusion of the sound effects. There are ways to play with the sound effects within Flash. For example, if you put a keyframe inside the blue line, then the audio file will get interrupted at that point. So you could use that. That's only if the sync is on stream actually. On default it's always on event. I recommend to put it on stream. Event is only if you make interactive stuff like websites or games. Stream, make sure that the sound is always in sync with the actual movie, which is what you want if you actually make movies. So after all that stuff, put all the sound effects in the right place. Make sure it's always on an empty layer and that they won't interrupt with each other. A problem with stream is if the sound is too loud, then it might corrupt the sound effects in the final movie, which makes a really irritating noise, so be careful. After doing all that, test your movie one more time, or 2,000 more times, that's how long it takes. And that's it. That's all you need to know to make an actual movie. However, there are a few little things that we still need to discuss to truly finish it off.